Hello, 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 and thank you for joining me in today's recap. We're actually a few days behind on the recaps. So this is going to be the Karen Read trial day 15 recap. I'm using Emily D. Baker's Quick Bits channel, where she summarizes the entire 8-hour day or 4-hour day, depending on which day court's in session. She summarizes it for us and gives us all the juicy deeds in a video under 20 minutes. So I'm going to use her quick bits for us to catch up on day 15 as we are going into day 21, if I'm not mistaken. So we still have quite a few of these to go. Throughout her summary, I will be giving my input and thoughts, and then ultimately what I'm left with, which is usually questions. So let's go ahead and get started. In just a minute, and we'll kick on over there and let her do her thing. If you do not know Emily D. Baker, makes me wonder if you've been living under a rock. No, just kidding. But if you haven't seen her commentary and her legal analysis through live trials and pop culture, anything court related, definitely check her out. In the description, you will find her links and her YouTube info. She is my favorite go-to, really. There's no sense in watching trial without her. She makes it fun, she makes it easy, and always entertaining. So let's get to it. And let's see. We will probably have questions.
The Commonwealth has accused Karen Read of striking her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with her car after a night of drinking and leaving him in the snow to die. The defense is saying, as they said in their opening statement, that Karen Read was framed and this is all a cover-up. While we are at the morning break of day 15, Jen McCabe is on the stand under a vigorous cross-examination from Alan Jackson. While there have definitely been points where the two are sparring and Jen McCabe wanted to be the one asking the questions, Alan did have his Camille Vasquez moment, are like, no, I'm asking the questions. That's how this works. The points that I've taken away from...
I have to pause for a minute and make sure that I note here for you guys that if you have not watched day 15, Jen McCabe's cross-examination during this Karen Read trial, I have to say it is worth going and watching. Not only is she defensive, not only does she came in on direct, hot, ready to go, forgetting which team she was on. Like, she was just ready to spar with whoever and whatever got in her way. So the cross-examination got really entertaining. And Emily is going to tell us all about that. But if you have not actually watched the entire day 15 cross-examination with Jen McCabe, I have to say the quick bits just isn't going to do it justice. But we'll catch up for now.
From the cross-examination that were most impactful to me, other than the overall tone and demeanor of the cross-examination, was that Jen McCabe in prior testimony said that when she was texting to ask John O'Keefe where he was, she was going to the door or the windows, looking at the SUV, texting, "Where are you? Hello?" and that sort of thing, which makes sense just from a human behavior logic. If you are waiting, and now the defense has put a timeline on it, anchored on the text messages, which is very helpful because we have something that has a timeline that is not someone's memory, but anchored on the text messages, 19-ish minutes that the SUV is outside of Fairview. And she's texting, "Here, pull behind me, hello," and is going back and looking at the SUV while texting John O'Keefe. So we now have a period of time where she has gone and looked at the SUV, and her testimony on cross-examination was 6 times in a course of 18 to 19 minutes. And in that time, she never saw John O'Keefe hit. She never saw the SUV back up. She never heard anything, never heard a collision, never saw anything out of the ordinary. And then when she looked back out and the SUV was gone, she saw nothing in the yard and was very evasive about the fact that she wasn't looking at the yard. She was looking out at the street. Keeping in mind this house is up several steps, so not only does she have the high ground, but an unobstructed view of the yard. So Alan Jackson got into a cross-examination about peripheral vision, and if there was an alligator in the well, you are testifying and looking at.
Okay, so he did. The alligator part was absolutely epic. As he was trying to explain to her how vision, I think he referenced it as, a field of vision. And if you have seen the mock-up that the defense did of the house, then it's really actually, let me fix. I hate whenever I pause
Me.
and leave it funky. But the front yard didn't have any large trees or anything to obstruct the view. And so what does make this odd is that here this witness, Jim McCabe, is not only the one that we know Googled how's, meaning how long to die in this cold at 2 something in the morning, which was it's already sus, right? But then she puts herself at the window. She puts herself there to monitor, seeing the SUV pull up, seeing it sitting out there, seeing how long it had been out there, and then realizing it had left and nobody came in the house. So where it gets fishy is where she didn't see anything. So, is she leaving out the timeline of when she left the window? So she puts herself at the window, at the door, checking it in an 18-minute span. But is she leaving out the part of, I actually didn't keep going to the window. I was texting from the kitchen, or I had my back to the window, and I, just kind of glance out, like, how quickly could Karen Read have hit the victim, John O'Keefe, and left in the span of the back and forth to the door? And her not seeing anything. She didn't see anyone in the yard. She didn't hear any moaning. She didn't hear any squealing of the tires. She didn't see anything, not then and not at any point of up to leaving. So for me, did she put herself there so that way she can be taken as a chronicle's not the right word, but more or less like a main witness of, one of those, no, I seen it. That's what happened. But then not realizing that the little things, like I went back and forth to the window, and the confidence that she has that this is how I did it, not realizing that also was going to make it weird that she didn't notice anything or she didn't see anything. Yes, you did see the SUV outside, but you didn't see or hear anything else. And that's where it gets a little fishy. And I don't know if she inserted herself thinking that another set of eyes seeing her out there or witnessing something was going to make this to a plea deal situation or going to help the police kind of push the investigation. Not real sure what the point is. I think that her account of seeing the SUV pull up matches the account of the other ones that may have seen it sitting there as well. But then the rest of it doesn't really match up, or it doesn't really make sense in terms of like what happened. So, but let's continue on and allow Emily to kind of give her thoughts on this.
Wouldn't you see it, though? The point was made. The judge did sustain an objection. It was a bit argumentative, but, as alligators in courtroom are wont to do. So how many times she looked out the window and did not see an accident was helpful timing, I think, in how this case is moving forward. Then we started getting into her state grand jury. But Alan was talking about what happened when she got home from Fairview and then switched gears. And you could see the witness waiting for the question about how long to die in the snow and what she was doing on her phone when she got home. And he switched gears back to the grand jury testimony. And it seems, and I am very curious what happens on redirect with the prosecutor on this, it seems that at the grand jury for the state in April 2022, just a few months after John O'Keefe died, that she never said in testimony that Karen Read said, I hit him I hit him. I hit him. And Alan Jackson went through 12 different points in the testimony where she was being asked about what Karen Read said. And Jen McCabe was testifying to versions of, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And one said, you never said, she said, I hit him. And her response to that was, well, I don't really know if I was asked in all of this if she said that.
Again, here we are with, I've got questions. So I guess it comes down to, I guess, Jen McCabe's explanation for not mentioning this to the grand jury in 2022 is essentially, I wasn't specifically asked, so I didn't specifically say. Now, I can't recall, I would have to go back and watch the direct, but I'm not exactly sure if she was directly asked about this from the prosecution either, or if it was asked to her in a similar fashion that it was in the grand jury, where she didn't volunteer the information. It's not what's leaving me with questions, and I think what's leaving a lot of the internet with questions, and possibly the jury, is that it's not so much about her not mentioning it at the grand jury. It's the conviction that she has saying it in this trial and the conviction she has of why it's not. Well, I don't know. I don't think I was directly asked, or, whatever the case may be. It's that's where it leaves you questions of well, why or how come, or it's more of the behavior and the tone and things like that that is coming across like there's something that they're hiding something. And Karen Read may be guilty, but based on like this witness, they're not helping me as somebody, if I were on the jury, coming into this with no prior knowledge of this even happened until Emily had mentioned that she was going to start covering it, makes it look fishy. And so if Karen Read is guilty, they're leaving questions. If Karen Read's not guilty, they're leaving questions. Like, it's just at the end of the day, the victim needs justice. And if you have been drinking too much and don't really remember, I think that would be more justice to the victim and to the family to say that early on to the prosecution, to the Commonwealth, that you actually don't recall, or there's bits and pieces. And I think especially years later, your statements, rather than acting as if it was as clear today as it was 2 years ago, when the one thing that is consistent across all witnesses is everybody had been drinking. So not having a clear memory of what was happening or what happened or how, time was passing would not be suspicious. But the way they're going about it, as if the drinking did not play a factor in and it's not being asked, well, by the Commonwealth, well, is it possible that, drinking have played a factor into remembering things or whatever the case may be? They are allowing these witnesses to go forward and pretending themselves as if their memory, what's coming out of their testimony, is as clear as it was the day that it happened. It's just, the whole thing is just kind of fishy. So, but let's continue on.
So on redirect, it'll be very interesting to see if there was more to that testimony, or if that testimony is as it appears to be, which is 12 different times she testified about what Karen Read said, and every single time was a version of, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? And there was much testimony about where Brian Higgins' mystery Jeep is, and whether or not at this point it's invisible. We are now starting to get into the answered calls that show answered on the phone, but don't show answered in testimony at this point, where there are phone records from the extraction of Jen McCabe's phone that shows that she called her sister, Nicole Albert, and the call was answered. And she's like, absolutely, I did not talk to my sister at 6:07, 6:08 that morning. And Alan Jackson asked a very good question, I think. So you're assured that you didn't talk to your sister as you are that Karen Read said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. At the end of day 15, which was a half day in court, well, Jen McCabe is still on the stand for cross-examination, and we haven't even gotten to the googliness of 2:27 a.m. We've talked about deleted phone calls. We've talked about as the defense puts it, off the books meeting at Officer Lank's house, where this witness testified that she and Carrie Roberts went to drop Carrie's daughter off at Officer Lank's house on the 30th because Officer Lank's daughter and Carrie Roberts' daughter are good friends, and Officer Lank's wife came out and chatted with Carrie. And, you know, Carrie's a talker. I think we've heard that about 16 times at a minimum, that, you know, Carrie's a talker. So we might have been there 45 minutes. But as the defense was asking on cross-examination, isn't...
Poor Carrie. I think because when I was a child, I got called talkative or talk too much or whatever, and who knew that eventually it would become handy in the era of social media and live streaming and content creating. And, you know, my husband's a lot smarter now, 20 years later, than he was when we first got married. But let's be honest, he never shied away from making sure I knew I was talking too much. So when Jen McCabe mentioned or would state like that Carrie talked a lot, or she's a talker, whatever, I was kind of like, I felt really bad for her simply being labeled that myself and like feeling so self-conscious about it. So it makes me really wonder like how much she talks that it's being brought up during this trial, or that like time lapses. So who knows how long we could have been there, but I am always self-conscious of like, I read people's faces and things like that, just based on the fact that I got told that a lot as I was younger. And so even if someone is like intensely paying attention and listening to me, sometimes I take that as a they're just wondering when I'm going to quit talking. And so now all I can think about is I need to shut up or quit talking when my point was made or not. Like, yeah. So anyway, so I really felt bad. The fact that kept getting brought up about Carrie, because I am self-conscious about it. And I'm sure that she probably feels that way, or at one time did, and has now just accepted it. But if it's any consolation, she can use it to create content. And it's, you know, those that don't talk very much don't have a whole bunch to say, and it makes it hard for them to create content. Those of us that talk a lot have so much to say, have endless possibilities for content creating. So anyway, that was my down the rabbit hole comment for you.
That the day after Nicole Albert texted, "We'll know more tomorrow." So what was in that conversation, and when did it get disclosed? And it seems that maybe it got disclosed during the federal investigation, but the jury doesn't know about that specifically. They know that there were other proceedings, and they know that this was discovered later. But what we also heard at the end of the day is that Carrie Roberts will be the next witness from the prosecution, and I am dying to hear it. But I want to hear from the cell phone experts now more than ever. It seems that there are phone calls on the Celebrite extraction from victim John O'Keefe's phone that show multiple phone calls to his phone from Jen McCabe, but that on Jen McCabe's extraction, those phone calls were deleted off the phone. But what we know about Celebrite is the extraction of the phone will show you if calls have been deleted and what have you, but the records from the cell carrier will show if those calls went through, were answered, went to voicemail, what have you. This is why the defense was so pressed about the phones that were rehomed, because the phone records from the carrier don't show that. You need both the physical phone extraction and the carrier records to show what was deleted. There was so much information about deleted calls and texts in the Murdaugh case. When we get to the evidence from any experts, I'm very interested to see the timeline of the digital evidence. And it feels like on this cross-examination, we're finally starting to get some timeline of the digital evidence that did not come in direct. We also heard the defense read the full context of the text in this group chat that was when Matt McCabe texted, Julie said, Channel 4 is at D&E. Tell Chris to tell them the guy wasn't in the house. It makes sense there. So even though that was brought up with Matt McCabe, we didn't hear, to my memory, the full text message. Matt McCabe said, no, them is Channel 4, but we didn't hear them read the full text. Matt said that's not the full text. So is that overreaching on the defense when they are leaving out parts of text? I don't think the full text looks great, but I think the leaving out the context also doesn't look great. There is so much in this case that is odd, that doesn't make sense, that is very strange behavior. I don't know if
it would help if I turn the mic on. Here's my question about that. So Emily brings up a point of the defense not giving the context of the text from Matt McCabe when they were talking about that guy and tell them. And Matt McCabe says it's about the news station Channel 4 being at the pizza place that one of the Alberts own or whatever. And so Emily, mentions just a second ago about does it look good? Like, does it not look good for the defense to not bring up the context of that, and so forth and so on? And no, nobody likes their stuff taken out of context, and the jury could see it as, well, what else are they taking out of context? When, witnesses in days prior have said, well, I don't want you, I want to make sure that you're not putting words in my mouth, or I just want to make sure that you're stating that accurately to the defense for, reasons of them shortcutting or paraphrasing things that was said rather than directly quoting it. So, yes, I can understand how the jury could see that, or how it may not look that good for the defense to be trusted by the jury. But on the other hand, my question is, does that fall on the defense, or should the prosecution Commonwealth have entered that text knowing that the defense is going to bring it up? Should they have entered that text into the direct examination and allowed the complete context of the group chat to come in? That way the jury would have a full understanding of what was said in that group chat. Or did the Commonwealth drop the ball there by allowing it just to kind of linger out there, giving the defense the opportunity to do so by not fully stating the context before and after, of the conversation in the group text? So I guess the question is, for me, or I have questions, is is it strategy by the prosecution, by the Commonwealth, to allow things to linger, and knowing that the defense is going to jump on it and maybe not use the time that they have with the witness to verbatim conversations? Like, is that their strategy, and allows the jury to continue to slowly allow mistrust creep in during the defense? Or is it simply the Commonwealth it's not their job, so they don't do it? So that's kind of the question I have is it strategy by the Commonwealth, or does that not lie on the Commonwealth to do? And they can clean it up and redirect if they choose to, but if it's not that big of a deal, they don't need to focus on it. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. Like I said, Emily says, by not giving the context, it could make the defense look bad. But isn't that the defense's job? Is the Commonwealth using it for strategy, allowing the defense to walk right into the mistrust trap kind of there? Or is the Commonwealth just dropping the ball? So let me know what you think on that.
The defense needs to make it more than it is, because what it is not great. It's just so odd to me why some things are being reached for when there is truly so much here in this case. There is lots of group texts going on talking about this case. I'm at the point where I just want to see the digital data. Everything else makes no sense to me. The deleted calls, the butt dials, the calls that are answered, but none of the witnesses say they are answered. Just bring the cell experts. We'll see what happens tomorrow. There's a lot more cross-examination to go, isn't there? And from the defense is really the first time I'm hearing that the prosecution thinks that the victim was incapacitated between 1229 and 1250. If it was said in opening statement, I missed it, or I can't remember it because so much was in opening statements, it was very hard to follow. I just want to see the phones. I want to see the phones from the victim. I want to see the rest of Jen McCabe's extraction. I want to see Karen Reed's phone. Just bring all the phones. But the prosecution has to prove this case. And so
And honestly, in the Murdaugh trial, the cell phone data and the car data and all that is, to me, always the dreaded part. It's not like as interesting because it gets really technical, a lot of charts, things like that. So especially on the direct, from the prosecution, from the state, it can get really bogged down. I remember reading somewhere along the years that one thing or one reason they feel like this prosecution struggled with the jury, on top of many things, but one thing was that the state, the prosecution, introduced a lot of DNA evidence by experts, and especially in a time that DNA was still new and things like that are newer. So don't quote me on that part, but I don't remember where I read it. But one of the things that they said they feel like what was lost in the jury was all of the tech stuff in terms of, like, the scientific behind DNA and blood analysis and all of that stuff. And I could totally understand that. Like I said, in the Murdaugh trial, it was like long, but they didn't stick on it too. Like, there wasn't so many witnesses for it. In this trial, I'm with Emily, bring on the cell phone data because it may not be an exciting witness, but I will tell you it's probably the most reliable witness this trial has. Seriously, like, it's going to be probably one of the only things you can trust is going to be the Cellbrite, whatever it's called, analysis from the phones that are left and not destroyed, whatever, and the data they're able to get. The medical examiner, things like that. Those are really probably the only witnesses that are going to be reliable or something concrete to be able to use as a juror of, because the rest of it is just insane. None of it makes sense. The investigation doesn't make sense. The way the investigation came across, the witnesses don't make sense. All the grand jury, all the federal investigation, which the jury technically doesn't know about because it's not really mentioned, but they know that there's other proceedings, the sloppy investigation work, the really boring what if any, who if any, why if any, direct examination. I think they still have a crap ton of witnesses to go. They haven't even got into like a lot of the technical stuff yet, which will be hard to get through for the jury, I'm sure. But again, it will probably be the most concrete, reliable part of the trial for them to be able to use, because the rest of the crap is just insane. So, and let's go ahead and wrap this up.
Far, there's a lot of information missing 4 weeks in. For deep dives into the stories that I covered here, you can find them on my YouTube channel.
So I guess I could have left that played for another 20 seconds or so, or if that. But so, as we've got a day 15 summary there, it was pretty quick. It was a half day. Jen McCabe is still on the stand. Just as a quick recap, she is on cross-examination. We will go into day 16 with Jen McCabe still on the stand, and it continues to get interesting. But again, at the end of day 15, even with the quick bits, I've still got questions. So I guess we'll wait. But we're going to jump into day 16, so make sure to check out that stream. I am going to try to catch up to real time, which would be today of day 21. If I'm not able to get the quick bits all uploaded before trial today, then I will tell you that by Friday, because there's no court on Friday, I will have us all caught up for Monday. So let me know what questions you have. If you still have questions, if you don't have questions, then clarify some stuff for me, please. And if you're following this trial, and don't forget to check out Emily Gavel to Gavel on trial days for the Karen Reed trial that may last the rest of, for sure, the rest of summer. It's supposed to be 8 weeks, and they're on day 21, but there's been a lot of breaks and half days and things like that. So, and then we have another holiday coming up in July, so it's going to be wild. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, and leave a comment. And I look forward to sharing day 16 summary where Shannon McCabe is still on the stand during cross-examination. Until next time, see ya.